find the terrorist in the internet haystack.
What's your interest in it, Mr. Wayne?
Another happy landing.
Hi, I'm Zach. He can't see anything. So who's that?
I'm Denise.
And then this is...
I'm Jake.
That's Jake. And today we'll be talking about a very special movie, Star Wars The Last Jedi. We are all pretty big fans of the series here at The Real Big Deal. And basically, I guess before we get into that, I would like to talk a little bit about our thoughts on the series and whatnot beforehand. So we'll start it out, and I think we'll just go. I guess, guys, what's your order of movies? Like, what do you think are greatest to worst, and etc. Whoever wants to go first, feel free.
Do you want to go or do you want me to
I
go?
can. I'm not as prepared as you, but
Okay.
and I know people are gonna hate this for me, but
I have a feeling most people are not going to like
all
our
right.
lists.
The one that I go back to, and I will say, I don't think it's the best in the sense of like plot and storytelling or acting, but I love Revenge of the Sith. Like,
It's pretty good.
I like Revenge of the Sith a lot.
and like, so honestly, I think that's the one I go back and watch the most, even more so than the new. Like, I shouldn't say The Last Jedi because I've only seen it once, but more than Force Awakens.
Oh yeah,
Like,
easily.
I really enjoy going back to Sith. And then I think probably sticking to just the original trilogy and the new section of 3. It's probably the original trilogy from the 70s are probably the next in line.
Okay.
And then probably just like episode 1 and 2. But then for me, Rogue One was actually really, really good. So I could put that maybe at 2. I really enjoy Rogue One. And then Force Awakens is better than some of the prequels as well. but
Interesting.
But I don't know. I love Sith. I'll always go back to
It's
Sith
entertaining,
first.
you know.
Yeah.
Good
Like,
time.
if you take anything away from it, it is very entertaining.
Yeah.
I mean, Palpatine.
Yeah.
Palpatine alone warrants
He
rewatching
makes
that
the
movie.
show the show.
There's
He is pretty
just
good.
a lot of reasons I think it's my favorite. But
So Jake, what do you got on your list? then?
My favorite, and after years of thinking about this, literally years, I've never been able to like put these in order before.
It's
so
hard.
It is really hard for me, but I have to go. And this is for pretty much personal reasons, but Return of the Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie.
Delicious.
Mostly because that was the first one I ever saw, because I didn't know how Roman numerals worked as a kid. So I watched
do
them.
any of us really though? You just think
Star Wars
it's
taught me.
No, they're not.
Pretty much. No, but yeah, Return of the Jedi is my favorite, and then it literally goes Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, New Hope, Revenge of the Sith, Rogue One, Attack of the Clones, Phantom Menace, Last Jedi, Force Awakens. And I have Force Awakens at the bottom of the list, but that doesn't mean I don't like it. It's just
just
that's
your
just how
lesser
I
of all
ranked
of them.
it. Yeah, and
Right.
I still really enjoy that movie.
Well, I think
but-
overall we all appreciate all of these films.
Right.
You know? Well, nice. My list starts with Revenge of the Sith as well, because it is just a delicious, delicious movie. And then it goes to Return of the Jedi, because it's pure awesome. It's the climax of the original series. It's basically everything. It wraps itself up. It's very nice. And then I have a tie between A New Hope and Empire. It's really hard for me. I like both about about as much as each other, just because there's things about each one that are just amazing. A New Hope was actually the first Star Wars I saw, and
Makes sense.
it holds near and dear. And then Empire's Empire, so you can't just let it go. And then after that is actually Rogue One, because it is a masterpiece of a
Well,
film.
I think it's underrated.
Yeah, and the more every time I
really
watch
love
it, I like it more and more.
Right.
So Gareth Edwards is a genius. And then after that, and I might get a little bit of flack for this, is The Phantom Menace, because for as much garbage as Phantom Menace gets, I don't know, I just really enjoy it. It's a fun movie, and honestly, it's still pretty action packed. A lot of people say it gets boring with the politics. I love the politics. I'm lame like that. It is what it is. And then after that comes Force Awakens, then The Last Jedi, and then Attack of the Clones. Because I just every time I revisit it at this point, I'm like, God, this is not good. There's parts of it that I enjoy, but it's mostly not good.
It's pretty good.
And then falling below that would be the holiday special, and then we dip real low. We get to The Room. And then we get to the 08 Clone Wars film. So that is my list.
The
You
08
went
Clone
with
Wars.
I really as a show it's fine, but they released it without fully rendering and it looks so bad.
It's just the first 3 episodes.
And I
of
just
the
really
show,
hate the Baby Hut.
No, yeah, Baby Hut.
That thing I need to kick out a window.
What?
Yeah, so in the movie there's this little baby hut that they have to
That's
transport
literally what
around.
the
That's
plot is centralized around.
Yeah. George has a lot of ideas, but clearly this was the last one that he shouldn't have.
Yeah.
So, yeah, basically that's where we kind of stand as fans in our order. You can kind of pick and choose what we are. But going off of that, I know I have a lot of favorite moments from the series, and there's a lot to pull from it. So, I'm sure we can talk forever about it. But what are some moments that you guys think are just, really good and organic to you? I guess what would be one of your favorite moments in Star Wars?
Just one or multiple?
We'll just do one.
Just one?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you had to pick one, it's going to be hard to pick your favorite, but if you had to pick one right now that would really get out to you, what would it be?
For me, it's not from my favorite Star Wars movie, but it's from Empire Strikes Back, which is my second. Is the scene where Luke is talking with Yoda. It's right before Yoda lifts the X-Wing, and Yoda's just he's saying all this mystical stuff about the Force, and he's just luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. And I just think that's very deep on so many different levels.
He's got that juju working, man.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. It's very it always gets me. It's always very as soon as that comes on. If I'm watching with a group of friends, everyone gets quiet when Yoda talks. You want to hear what he has to say, and it's
gorgeous.
It's my favorite.
Oh yes, Denise.
Mine is not a deep moment. I feel like I shouldn't say it after James.
No, do
I feel
it.
so mediocre. I love the fight between Anakin and Kenobi and Sith. That final one where the derobing and it's just ridiculous. Right.
Yeah,
but it's so much fun, and it never gets old.
No.
I'm always
such a
smiling
good
watching
fight.
it because and on top of it's ridiculous, but the fighting alone, I think,
It's
is
such good
one
choreography.
of the it's probably one of the best battles.
Yeah, well,
It's the longest sword fight in cinema history.
it's pretty good.
It's long.
Well, and on top of that, a lot of people give it flack for the clunky dialogue that we get throughout it. And, some of the delivery ain't the best, whatever. But the fighting alone makes it worth it. And on top of that, yes, like I said, the delivery is kind of clunky. But what they're saying is pretty intense. He's you were my brother. I
and
trusted you.
Let's be real. If you were fighting like that, how many
it would
words
be-
would you be
right.
saying?
Yeah.
But I think one of my favorite parts is when they're in that really tight little sectional
block,
hallway,
yeah.
and
Oh.
their sabers are hitting the top, and the sparks are just flying. I don't know. It's just cool. It's not a deep moment, but I don't.
Well, yeah. One of my favorite parts from that actually is when they're on the little floating raft, and basically Obi-Wan finally is just he's at that point. He's just I failed you.
Yeah.
I failed you. And that's the part where I'm just that is so hurtful. To think about being told that by this guy who's been with you for most of your life, basically a father to you, just being I failed you, Anakin. Oh, that's depressing.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving from depression, my favorite moment lies actually with A New Hope, and it's a very generic favorite moment. But every time I see it, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it right now. But Luke looking at the binary sun, it is the most Star Wars moment in Star Wars, and it's just, you can take so much from just that small scene that, you know. And I mean,
John Williams.
John Williams at his peak with that muse, and you know, it's a very nice image. So yeah. So yeah, going from there, I think those are all some fun stuff. But let's get into it, because I'm sure we can talk forever about Star Wars
In general, right?
So, as for The Last Jedi, we're gonna start out here. We're gonna get in kind of just our basic thoughts, because
we're going to try to be spoiler free. I don't know how long we'll be, though.
yeah. So basically, after we get through these basic
3. It will turn into not spoilers.
Well, after we get through these like thoughts here, it's gonna switch to spoilers, because let's be real, it's hard to talk about this movie without spoiling it.
Yeah.
It really is, like, you know. So, I know we kind of all are a little bit mixed on what each one of us thinks. So, I guess, Denise, what what do you think of Star Wars: The Last Jedi?
Overall, I think probably a 3 out of 5 if I had to actually give it a rating.
Okay.
I thought you were going to say 3 out of 10, and I was just like, oh my.
Yeah, I was like, that's
No, that would be so bad. No. I didn't like not like it that, but I don't know. For me, the first like half an hour, 40 minutes was weird for me, because like there's a lot of comedy in that first half an hour, 40 minutes that for me felt really out of place. Did not feel like it naturally belonged in a Star Wars movie, where even with Force Awakens there was a lot of like comedic bits, even just with like BB-8, but it felt more natural in the story, and that first half an hour just felt really out of place for me, and it kind of threw me out of it a little bit, in the sense that I was just like, what am I watching? Like,
Right.
It feels really weird. After that, when things kind of started to progress, I think overall I enjoyed it more. But I don't know, some characters were pointless, I think. Some actors and actresses were misused, were unnecessary. You know, visually I thought it was great overall, but I don't know, I think I need to watch it a couple more times to truly feel out how I think about it, but
yeah, it's a hard one.
not particularly the greatest overall.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Jake, what
Fair point.
are you kind of thinking?
I definitely agree with what you said, where especially in that first like half hour, 45 minutes, that humor really does throw you out of it. I've heard it. Someone described it to me as almost like they're using a Marvel formula with
Right,
the
it
movie.
does kind of feel
like
like
it felt.
a-
It felt
The
very
first thing I thought was very
Guardians.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Like there's like that first joke right at the beginning. I was very much like it was funny, but it was also like, does this really belong in Star
Right, it
Wars? Like it just didn't
didn't
feel
fit,
natural. So yeah, I didn't really care for that too much. But that being said, I've never been so mixed feelings watching a Star Wars movie before. Like there were things in it that I really, really loved,
Yeah.
and things in it that I was just kind of like, I don't know if I like this or not. And I think that's kind of what he was going for.
All right, he wanted to test the limits. for
Yeah,
the
and
film.
he's wanted to like, I don't know. It was almost like a deconstruction of Star Wars
Yeah.
in some ways, which like maybe the series needed that. I personally don't think it did,
Yeah.
but I did. I think in the long run, I do enjoy it more than Force Awakens, just because we're finally getting more information on a lot of these
Right.
new characters.
Well, the story progresses.
Yeah, and you know that opinion could change for me down the road, but right now
We'll see how nice.
it's sitting. Yeah. But yeah, I guess that's my 2
Okay.
cents.
Yeah, I guess my best way to describe this movie would be, it is a great film, but it is a terrible Star Wars film. I really like a lot of things they do in this movie. I like a lot of the visuals. I like some of the camera work that was done, and I like the way that they use certain things to explain things. But personally, I think the plot is terrible. They kind of mess with a lot of characters, and I really didn't enjoy it. The humor, I really didn't enjoy either. And honestly, the more I think on it, and the more I've seen it, because I've seen it 2.5 times at this point, and the more I see it, the more I'm kind of just like, I'm not feeling it. Like I said, there's a lot of good moments, and there's certain things I'm like, yes, that is Star Wars. This is beautiful, great. And then there's other things where I'm like, why in the hell is this in this movie? Like, this ruins it and you're ruining like the entire canon right now because you're basically, I just felt he wanted to retcon so much by changing little things to like change out how certain characters would turn out, and I don't think it works for me anyway. Especially since anytime there would be a dramatic moment, I felt they would just cut it down with a comedic
turn
moment.
of a dime.
Yeah, just be like, oh, there it is,
Yeah.
and I'm like, well,
It's kind of a one-off
Okay.
for humor's sake.
Yeah,
and
and-
it's like nothing's stuck.
That's kind of like the introduction of Luke right away.
yeah.
Yeah.
Such a dramatic, you're like, what's he gonna say?
Right.
And then it just turns and you're like, oh,
Okay, yeah.
okay.
Not what I expected.
Right,
Which,
yeah.
like, once again, that's what he was going for. That's the kind of, like, theme he wanted for the movie, but did we really need that? Is that
Right.
what Star
Well,
Wars
it was almost
really
like this whole
needed?
movie was like a double bait and switch.
Yeah.
Because it would be like, oh, well, I bet you thought this was going to happen. Just kidding. But just kidding about that just kidding. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, wait a minute. Like, what are you doing here? I don't know. So I have a lot of problems with the movie. I like certain things. I like some elements. And overall, I think I would, I ranked this below Force Awakens. I thought Force Awakens was way more of a Star Wars story. I thought it was very much... And yeah, I mean, it does carbon copy A New Hope, but like, honestly, what other way would we have gone into this
right,
series?
we kind of talked about that in the pre-film
Yeah.
video where...
What did you expect?
Right,
sort of
Right.
thing,
what
yeah.
did you expect of how them to get back into the
Exactly.
series? So
So, yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling about it. So, without further ado, we're spoiling this beast because
go see
yes,
it, pause it, and come back.
yeah. So
Yeah, if you let's be real
There
here
it
though,
is.
like you've probably seen it by now, right? If you're a Star Wars fan,
if you haven't,
maybe,
go see it
possibly.
because
If not,
you know.
yeah, you should go see it.
But that being said, I have a lot
You
of problems.
don't even know where
I
to
have a lot of problems. I like things, but I have a lot of problems. I guess let's start out with the good, because otherwise I will delve in real hard. So, what do you guys think was your favorite moment from this movie?
For me, I think it, and I'm doing another fight again, but I think it was that fight, not where they're against each other, but with
When they fight the burning
Kylo,
guards?
yeah, and,
Yeah, that
and
was
Rey.
awesome.
For different reasons, like visually, I thought it was really striking because of the color difference of the red to,
Yeah.
everything, and then, well, right before that, you get the death of Snoke, which
I love
but anyway, but I just love that fight. Like visually, it's really cool with the red guards.
Yeah.
But then I think too how Rey and Kylo interact together.
It was interesting.
It was interesting, and I think they seem kind of in sync.
Yeah, they seem in tandem.
Right,
real
and
hard.
I think that has to do with the fact that
They're each
throughout the
other's
movie,
equal in the Force. Yeah.
That, and I think throughout the movie, they've been basically talking.
Well, they've been lonely.
Because of right,
You know.
because of Snoke, and they're identifying with each other. So I think
having issues with their masters
Right,
and finding
so-
common ground.
they're kind of like someone to fight with me. But then the fight is just awesome. But then how that fight ends too is
It's pretty intense.
right. So I think for me that was probably
Good moment.
one of the favorites.
I kind of have two.
Okay.
I would say my overall favorite scene was Puppet Yoda making his grand return.
That one's always fun.
That
Lightning and
was-
all.
I loved that scene so much. Like that was so good, and I don't even know what else to say about it. Like it was just so good. It's
pretty good.
It's Yoda, so.
The second one though, that's very close to me. That actually, I've watched the movie 3 times now, and every time I've watched it, I've gotten like choked up. Is when Luke is like reunited with R2, and R2 plays the
yeah.
projection of Leia. I'm just like, oh.
right
Pretty
here,
good one.
right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So very obviously nostalgia-based scenes, but also like this is what I came to see
Yeah.
too. So like
You
I was
can
very
tell
happy with it.
pretty much everybody, I think, enjoys that Yoda scene because I've gone in to check the theater various times and I've hit that scene and people just love it. They laugh every time he talks. So I think that's probably a general favorite among many people of the
Well, and just what he says too, like Luke's like, "Oh, so it is time for the Jedi," and Yoda's like, "Time it is for you to get your head out of your butt and get back in there and be a
Yeah.
Jedi." I'm just like, "Yes."
It's just like, oh. He's like, what about the books? He's like, You don't need
He's like, you didn't even read him, Luke.
I skimmed.
I skimmed them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was pretty good. Yeah, it's a
What
good
about you?
moment. I really like that moment. I gotta say though, I'm not the biggest fan of the force projection Luke. I've accepted it and moved on, whatever. But post that, right when like he fades into the force, and you get the binary sun again, and I was just like,
You've made a full circle from your
I have.
favorite moment back to your favorite
well, I
moment
know,
in
and
this
like,
movie.
I mean, it is full nostalgia based, but like the first time I watched it, I was like, I got the goosebumps, and I was kind of just like, oh wow. But the second time, I like, I became
Did you
a
cry?
little bit of a whimsy little man, and I didn't cry, but like there was a lot of
The like eyes
the
were
swelling,
moving,
and like
yeah.
there was a bit of tear in there, and I was just like, oh my, because that was pretty intense. And then they tried to do it again with the little kid, didn't like it as much, but that's fine.
The little kid scene was weird.
I
Like
just
I
felt it was
liked
out
it,
of place.
but it was
Yeah.
like tagged on.
Okay, let's get
Yeah,
back to
sorry,
that later,
Back
but
to the good.
we will keep talking about the good for a little bit longer here. You guys, what was your favorite character? Mine definitely was probably either Poe or Luke in this movie, because I mean, Poe is the only character I felt who actually advanced full circle in character development in this movie.
He also felt like himself.
Yeah,
I felt like
he didn't
some
like change
characters,
as a person.
Right, just seemed like they maybe wouldn't have done this
Yeah.
by knowing them who they were in
Well,
the first film. But
and you could tell he learns from his mistakes, and
Right.
he's willing to adapt. But at the same time, like he holds true. And honestly, like as much as people complain about it, he had every right to do what he was doing. He was, it was his lesson to learn. Like sometimes you need to like try to fight another day type thing. But like you can justify his actions through this movie. You really
Yeah.
can. And I just really enjoy that. And then Luke was just, I mean, come on. Like
It's Luke
it was
Skywalker, dude.
it was Luke Skywalker.
Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill literally acts it with ease because he's like, yeah, I mean, this is basically how I feel every day. So, like it's very enjoyable. So yeah, I would say those two are probably my favorite characters.
Yeah.
Seriously,
I mean,
Snoke, right?
I enjoyed watching Snoke die. No, I mean, if we're counting like classic characters, Yoda was my favorite
Oh,
character.
I
But
guess
like,
I wasn't
but I mean,
thinking
like
about
Yoda,
that, yeah.
Luke, Leia. I mean, seeing all of them on screen is amazing. If we're talking new characters, though, I would agree with you on Poe. I enjoyed him so much more in this movie than I did in
the last
Force
one,
Awakens
yeah.
because he was just so much more developed. We got to see so much more with his character, and he was just like, I don't know, like he was just kind of like the hotshot pilot.
He's a badass,
Yeah,
dude.
he's
Like, I'm
cool.
sorry.
Like he's
Yeah.
seriously a
He
cool
was a
character.
badass.
I liked Rey a lot more in this movie than I
Yeah.
did in Force Awakens. Once again, they're developing her. I actually really liked Kylo Ren in this movie. I know you have a different
I didn't.
opinion on
I'm
that
sorry,
than me.
dude, but yeah.
I enjoyed him quite a bit. I don't know. I think he's interesting. I think he's
that's
one of the more
fair.
interesting characters. I mean, BB-8 remains my favorite of the new characters, they just keep making him better,
Yeah.
so I'm fine with that. I mean, yeah, I enjoyed a lot of characters in this movie. I think that was one of this movie's strengths. Honestly, was a good majority of the characters, main characters.
No, I know what you
were
mean.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Akbar was pretty great. Nia Nub was pretty great. Oh no, I've opened a wound. We still have Nia Nub.
We miss you. Denise, how about you?
I enjoyed Luke. I think later on I enjoyed him more.
Yeah.
I don't mind Kylo, but I don't think he's my favorite.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Poe is just the most interesting.
Well,
The
yeah.
one who I think is the most compelling that you want to watch, and you really kind of want to see him grow in that journey. For me personally, I enjoyed seeing more of Captain Phasma, even though she possibly
I
just got
could
wrecked.
see them being like,
Died.
yeah, she's
Right.
No,
Right.
she's coming back. She's gonna have like torn up armor in the next one
broken
and be
eye,
like more
she's
right,
edgy.
just one eye, that's like redone. But like, I just because their fight, her and Finn's fight, I thought was pretty good too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. It's hard because some of the characters, like, as much as I hate to say this, Rose, the character of Rose, I think,
She kind of fell flat.
yeah.
I enjoy her. Like, I like the
I think
actress.
she was
I
a
like,
good accompaniment to Finn's character,
It was just a terrible plot.
but their
point
plot,
for them.
right?
Yeah,
their
they
plot.
had the
So
worst plot part.
I
point
think
of
their
the movie.
chemistry was good with each other, although we can get into
well,
that
yeah.
later on. Their natural like friendly chemistry, but
Yeah. No, they work off
Yeah.
each other well.
I mean, and I did like seeing Laura, even though I think she was misused some, but
In so many ways.
So the visuals in this movie were pretty awesome. I gotta say, for as much as like some of the beginning I didn't really, I was in and out. But that first shot when we go into space and they like spin down with the ships,
That was
I
cool.
was like, oh,
that
that's
was really
pretty
cool. That
sweet.
felt very Star Wars.
Well,
so
and-
it instantly was like, okay, I'm into
Yeah,
this.
well, and you don't see a lot of like honestly with the space battles, you don't see a lot of 3D shots like that where they work all the way around to show you like different dimensions. So I was like, that's pretty sweet. I thought the entire like island scenes with like Luke and Rey, they looked beautiful. Ryan Johnson was doing this thing with like white light there that was just, it was bliss. I love it. So yeah, I thought visuals in this movie were pretty awesome. The only spot I really didn't like it was right after BB-8 has the ATST controls. I don't know what happened, but it just starts looking terrible until they're out of that like base area. Like the effects around it did not look too good.
Talking about like with like all the fire everywhere. And
Yeah, like the
everything.
fire just kind of looked like really
No,
weird.
I know what
and then,
you
like,
mean. I thought it looked very.
It looked very
fake-ish,
video
which I
game-y.
know. Yeah,
Like-
yeah. You're right.
and-
I would agree with you there.
Yeah, and it drew me out of that moment. I mean, I was already having a hard time like caring about that side plot. Like I really liked that fight and stuff, but like I was kind of like okay, and then like that just really kicked me out. I also really didn't like how every scene with like Finn and Rose looked like it was the same. Like anytime they were riding something, it looked like they just took the same shot from like
Right.
a different green
Yeah,
screen
that
and
was
just threw it
not
on. They're like,
great.
oh, here we go, But
Yeah.
the salt planet was good.
that was
Yeah.
pretty sweet.
The
Great,
white to the blood red,
Gareth Edwards.
and like even just the first initial like steps they take, but then like after Kylo basically just uses all of the ammo to
Yeah,
shoot at Luke,
that
and
was
it's
pretty
just
sweet.
blood red, and it's I'm sure there's some symbolism there, but
Yeah.
but it's just very right. It's just
Pretty
very
good.
striking to use that visual.
Oh yeah.
And then, when Kylo's like sliding through it, it changes color. It's just really cool.
Well, and I actually I enjoyed the little hoppers, the mono.
Yeah.
I can't think of the name. Sorry, guys. But they were like flying towards the walkers.
Ski speeders,
Yeah.
skiff speeders.
Something like that. But I kind of enjoyed how that looked, and then I really liked not only Gareth Edwards' like salt comment there, but I liked the you could tell he's like the more experienced rebel. Just straight up stands up there with the binoculars.
They're all like intense, and he's just like, I'm
Yeah,
just
he's
gonna
like,
stand
what are they gonna do? It was just, I was like, all right, for as much as like some of the comedy I didn't like, that felt pretty organic.
I don't even know if it was like supposed to be
No, but,
funny.
like,
I
I
think
was
we
like,
just found
oh,
it
And that's
funny, which
probably
like,
what made it funnier.
Right.
well, that's like what most things in Star Wars. What makes them funny is they're not necessarily meant to
They're
be
not
funny,
supposed to be funny,
but you just
right.
find them funny because
Yeah.
you've watched it a gazillion times.
Yeah.
and-
Right.
But
So yeah, you guys like anything else? I mean, like, there's a lot more we could talk
going
about.
off the visuals, I think it looked really good. It was weird because like Force Awakens, they made such a big deal out of everything's going to be practical effects. We're doing so many practical effects, and this movie doesn't utilize it as much.
No.
But the CG looked pretty good.
Yeah,
for
it
the
was good
most
CG.
part.
Oh, yeah.
The Pokemon Fox, Alolan Ninetales. I actually thought they looked cool, but it
Yeah.
was also just kind of like.
I like
weird.
those. I didn't like the casino scene. But
I also did not like the casino scene.
that's but yeah, no, I do like the foxes. I do like. I guess they looked like a clean render, which was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. So unless you guys have anything else to say here, get into the nitty of the
I
gritty.
mean, if we're talking like good things, I guess I would also say that Luke's send off was really good. But I mean, you already kind of talked about that with the binary sunset. No, which is fine. But that was just another part of the movie where I just thought was done really, really well as far as.
I also liked where I think they also should have ended the movie, but
Yeah.
the scene where like they pull away and it's like all like what's left of the rebellion.
Rey's holding the
And that-
broken
it's just-
saber, right?
It's a nice, beautiful shot,
That-
and it's a very Star Wars
Yeah.
shot. And then they, boom, and then they bring you to this other thing.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. So are we going into bad?
Yeah, let's do
now?
it because
let's jump.
why
right
not?
I have to go back to that comedy in that first half an hour.
Oh,
Like, so if you've seen it by now, Luke's introduction, he literally throws the saber over his shoulder, and I felt
it was just like wait.
right. Would he like the Luke that we know? And obviously, like,
Stuff has happened.
right, stuff
but-
has happened, but like, to me, it's almost like he should have been scared of the saber
Yeah.
and just not even take it.
Or like another thing he could have done is like he looks at it and just goes, "Keep it," and hands it to her and walks away. Or like maybe he straight up just like drops it.
He didn't have to
Right.
throw it over his shoulder
Right, that-
for
I
comedic
think,
effect.
You know, he could have taken it and just like dropped it and walked away and not even said anything
Yeah.
too. And that would have been a more intense moment of like, oh crap, he's really not into this
Well,
right now.
and I know they were trying to like make a statement like, "Oh yeah, we're throwing all of that stuff out the window because this character doesn't care about that anymore." And it's like, okay, but like Luke would care. Like, I'm sorry,
Right.
you could argue like, "Oh yeah, it's been like this amount of time and like all this stuff has happened." It's like, but at the end of the day, and we see it throughout the movie, Luke is still Luke, and the character that was built up in the original trilogy wouldn't do this.
Right.
And that's
So that
It's
just
very
all felt not like a Star Wars movie to me.
yeah.
Like, and
I
that,
felt like a blooper for a Star Wars
right,
movie.
or it
you know,
felt like a weird behind the scenes like mockumentary or documentary
Yeah.
of like what they would really do. You know,
that's
it
what
just-
someone would do to parody the movie.
Right,
Yeah.
like it just felt
Like, who-
really
there
weird.
it goes.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that comedy could have been just taken out because the Porgs alone you could have had be your comedy and you would have been just fine.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
I
don't know. I just
also really didn't like how the treatment of Hux throughout this entire movie.
Although
I understand him getting belittled. I do.
I did laugh at his opening, like
That was
It was funny, but once again, that
Well,
felt
right.
very
Yeah.
Guardians
right,
of the
but
Galaxy,
it
not
felt
very
like
Star
it
Wars.
didn't belong in this movie, especially because I mean, obviously Hux has got to be a somewhat bad guy, somewhat intimidating guy
right, and
to
you
get
just,
where
you
he
just make him
got.
seem like he's a bitch. Like
Right, you make him seem like a sneevling little, like, just suck up, and I hated that.
Yeah, because like I don't know. To be honest, if I was under his command and like I saw this dude like, you know, he just got made fun of by some rebel, and then Snoke like he's like oh like just tell him we lost him or something, you know, and then like he just gets his stuff rocked and is thrown across the ground. I would just be like, yeah, I'm not gonna listen to this
Yeah, like
guy
no one,
again.
he's not gonna.
I
Have
would never respect
in
him.
that
Right.
place of power.
Yeah,
you know, it's kind
and like Snoke makes the offhand comment later, like, "Oh yeah, we keep him around because like they listen good," and it's like,
Well, because
fine, but like that
basically
means
he's
other
a
people
pawn
listen
to
to
control.
him. Yeah,
But he's not best for that role if they're gonna write him like that.
well, right, and then I don't know. I felt like a lot of the stuff that they did with him, they just made him seem silly. And
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that just goes down to the misuse of characters. We could talk about Laura Dern. We
Oh.
could talk about Rose. Because let's be real, Laura Dern's character, you maybe could have done something just cooler. You could have even had her turn against them.
Yeah.
And that, for me, would have been a cooler plot line.
I think it would have.
instead of like, I'm not gonna tell anyone anything.
Right,
and
instead of
cause more
basically like
problems.
the plan me and Leia talked about, I'm the only one who gets to know, but basically I'm causing issues across planets.
Yeah.
Well, and
Like-
honestly,
Because the Finn and Rose
that
storyline
literally never would have happened
didn't
if
need
they'd
to happen.
if they'd have just if she'd have just told him what was going on.
Right.
And
This
it's like
is-
this is just a waste of time.
this is one of my biggest problems with this film. Is
Yeah.
this right here? Is because literally with one piece of like dialogue, and I
Character
understand
shift?
like
Right.
I understand he was trying to go for like, well, we need this to happen to get to this, but like you can't justify that with this character because I'm sorry. It's not like Poe never gave her a chance to explain. He did.
He asked
And
multiple
He's like,
honestly-
so like, what are we doing? And she's like, well, you're just gonna be quiet. And it's just
Yeah.
like,
And all she
what?
would have had to do was be like, hey, I have a plan. Don't worry. Like, you know, and then later when the mutiny is about to happen, he gives her a chance. And then she just, like, is like, I hope you know what you're doing. And it's like, literally
Yeah,
just be
because-
like, hey, we're going to a former rebel base. We're figuring it out.
Because to me, it's like with Leia. Granted, I know they're two completely different characters, but like, if she and Leia had already devised this plan,
Yeah.
Leia would not have handled it the same way. So why
no.
did you?
Leia would have told Poe what was
Right.
going
Right,
on.
because
You know,
it's like, you know, the guy who probably is most of your resistance right there, like the guy who has probably the most kills, the guy who's like your best pilot and one of your best like assets, deserves to probably know like, hey, we're going to this planet.
Well, and look how easily it was for him to create a mutiny in the first place.
Yeah, he had a lot of people loyal to him.
Exactly.
Like, he has a lot of respect.
You literally misused a person at your, like, hand to help you out.
Well, and then they try to justify it with, like, her death. And, like, yes, that worked, and, like, it was nice. And
It was a cool scene,
yeah,
too.
but, like, that still doesn't redeem the moment for me.
Yeah.
No.
And the other problem is, it'd be different if Poe just wasn't listening. But, like, when Leia explains to him later, like, hey, this is what's happening, he's like, oh, that's a good plan. Like, immediately, he's like, that's a good plan.
Yeah.
And it's just
Basically,
like, so obviously he would have listened.
And then they almost kind of, like, make it seem like, well, now you've learned your lesson, Poe. And it's just like, what lesson? Like, he literally wanted to get stuff done, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It just...
Yeah. But, yeah, so that was terrible. But then, because of the way they took her, the Finn and Rose crap, like, on that casino planet, felt...
slow.
I didn't.
Well, that,
not Star Wars.
But, like, right, like, to me...
felt very prequely to me.
It
It didn't even feel prequely. It felt like...
It felt like they were implanted into a different movie where there's also, like, alien creatures and...
Yeah, hardly any of those aliens were, like, classic Star Wars aliens or even, like, prequel Star Wars aliens. Like, you could have shown...
Mostly human.
Well, it was
seemed
mostly
too.
human with, like, a few aliens you saw in, like, The Force Awakens. And it's like, you could utilize this moment.
You have an entire universe of
Right, you have
aliens
all
already
these characters
existing.
Because even in Force Awakens, when they go see Maz, like
There's still a lot of
entire
familiar
bar
stuff.
Yeah,
is
and
filled
that's
with
a cool scene.
right a ton of creatures, and you do the stupid casino thing. Which, by the way, did you realize that was Justin Theroux, their character,
yeah.
who like they were supposed to get? But yeah, I don't know. And then get into Benicio too.
That was just like, I don't know. You know, they have BB-8 save them in the end, but and I understand they're trying to go for like that whole bait on bait switch here, but literally you could have had him be like, you know what? I already have the money. I'm gonna save you guys and get out of here.
Right.
And that could have been it.
I actually didn't mind how he was in the end, just kind of like...
I don't know what to say.
I mean, like, I'm just like, I literally don't have a side, because he's almost kind of like the reverse Lando, instead of
Yeah.
like coming around and being like, oh crap, I did the wrong thing. He's just like, I don't really care, and he just leaves. I mean, it could have been done better, I agree, but it was also kind of like,
Not everyone's
it wasn't
good,
just a
yeah.
copy of Lando, you know, which
Yeah.
like,
Well, right.
I'm glad
Well,
they
and
didn't do.
I have a feeling we might see him again in 9. We'll see
I
what
would
happens.
assume we would.
And if we don't, then I'm going to be kind of
Yeah.
more upset.
Especially that they cast Benicio.
Right.
Like, you could have thrown anybody else in that role, but you cast Benicio.
Could be they're setting up.
Yeah.
True.
I mean,
Right.
I would hope they're setting
You
up.
hope,
at
but
this
you never
point.
know at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, I don't know, like that whole scene, like I think it was interesting having like the whole Finn and Rose dynamic and then the whole like all the stuff happening, but the problem was it just didn't fit in this plot. It felt like hey, we're in a different movie now, like a different Star Wars movie that just kind of is like you know.
And I kind of liked the environment of everything.
Yeah.
Like, the casino itself was cool, and it was like a cool area, but they don't really explore it enough or like make what's actually
In and out.
happening there interesting enough to get you invested
Well,
in it.
I think too because you're spending so much time, especially in Force Awakens with Rey on Jakku, where it's basically like a low poverty planet.
Yeah.
And you see that a lot, and then you get dumped in this high
Society,
right.
weapons
and it feels
dealers.
kind of out of place because, and I can see where you would think that would be a prequel because in the prequels
Well,
you're
they're
getting,
very higher
right,
class stuff.
right?
yeah.
So you're seeing that a lot, and obviously there are planets that have that, but I think because you spend so much time on like Jakku that you feel just
Well,
Yeah.
feels really out of place.
and that goes into another like big problem. In fact, it's probably the biggest problem I have with this movie is
Universe
scaling.
building, yeah.
And on universe
scaling.
building too. You look at a scene like in A New Hope when they go in the cantina, they do a multitude of things in there, and like you visit the scenery enough where like honestly, and yes, we've probably seen it a million times, but you know the layout, you know what's going on, you see all these creatures. You don't need to necessarily up front see them constantly, but you see that they're going around. And you could also look at like Maz's castle too. You kind of get that same thing. Now the problem is with the casino, it is just in and out. And honestly, the only thing I remember from that is that stupid little leprechaun. So I'm just
I
like,
hated the design of that thing.
and it just
That
sucks.
didn't
You know?
look like Star Wars at all.
Yeah.
And you could have built so much more into that, and then that goes into like everything else with this movie as far as scale. I don't see the scale of the war.
Everything
All I
feels
see is
small.
just like, oh yeah, it's this little close side versus this close side in a little corner of the galaxy that nothing else
And
is.
you don't
Yeah.
see the mass effect. And
No.
I think that's
That's the problem. We
Right.
don't know
Yeah.
what's going on
right.
in the
You
world.
don't know how it's
Well,
affecting
universe.
the other planets and stuff. So
Yeah, you at least get a sense of that in just like A New Hope during the Death Star battle seems. I mean, obviously that's a Death Star, so it's big, but you get the Star Killer base in Force Awakens, and once again, it just feels like it's a minute event compared to everything else going
Yeah.
on in the galaxy.
Like, yeah, they might have destroyed that, but it doesn't mean it's
And they
gonna
never
stop 'em.
show like the First Order is supposed to be like this big, like powerful entity like the Empire, but like they don't show that at all.
No, and honestly, I have a feeling that it almost seemed like Snoke's fleet that was there was the First Order. So I'm
right,
gonna-
it
like-
always seems like they're hiding out on whatever planet they're on or ship they're
yeah,
on.
like that is all of them, and then
Right.
like this is all of the Resistance. And I mean, they straight out say like, yeah, this is all of the Resistance, and
Which,
then I'm like,
that makes sense because they're
Yeah.
like on their last leg. But like I
Right.
feel like the First Order should feel they could
should
have a
be
bigger
on
presence.
every planet.
Well,
right,
yeah.
should have a presence on every planet. And
you look at Empire, and like from the get go, like even just them sending out probes, you feel like, oh, they are really like.
They're
They have
searching the whole
command.
galaxy.
They have command. They have the fist. They are in control. In this, I feel like the only thing they control is where the rebels are going. They don't control anything else.
Well, even in like A New Hope, not to keep comparing it to the original trilogy, but like you get towards the beginning that whole like group of like governors and moffs or
Yeah,
whatever.
like
Like they're
that's-
talking about like all the crap that they control, right?
Right.
Even if they had like something similar to that in this, or just like a few lines of dialogue saying, "Well, we've got like all of these sectors covered in this galaxy. We've got them cornered now," or something.
Yeah.
to
Well,
really...
instead, all we get is like Snoke and the triumvirate of like Kylo, Phasma, and Hux, and like they're all on that same ship. So it's just
Right.
like, okay, so is this all of the First Order? Because if so, there's a power vacuum in this galaxy that we need to know about.
right.
And supposedly the whole Republic has been destroyed at this
Like,
point.
that's a
too. I'm
pretty big deal.
The Republic was only on like those 3 planets or 4 planets that got blown up. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I know that's a lot, but like, this is a whole galaxy we're talking
Right.
about.
You know, and then on top of that too, I just feel like back to the scale of things, you don't really get the grand gesture of most of the characters. You really don't. I mean, you get it out of Poe and you get it out of Luke and Leia because like Luke and Leia, I mean, they kind of write themselves at this point. But like everyone else, I'm kind of just like, you didn't learn anything. You didn't gain anything. I mean, Rey did.
I think Ray
And
probably,
Rey
yeah.
You know, and I have my personal problems with Kylo. I think, you know, there was some development, but I just feel like at the end too, he's still kind of in the same place he was, but he just has more power.
Yeah.
Like he's just like an angry teenager who got handed $1,000. Like,
I kind of like how he's just really at the end of things. He's just this real messed up young adult who's just like he has this extreme power, and he's just so screwed up from all the stuff that's happened to him though that he's just like, I just need to get control and figure things out, but all this crap keeps happening to him, and that's leads into killing
see,
Snoke. which
and I
is
can see that.
great.
And like, yeah, I think like him killing Snoke was bound to happen. I really hate how like, again, it goes back to like how they wouldn't listen to Hux. Honestly, I mean, yeah, Kylo can kill you with the Force, but like besides that, like once he's gone, I'd be like, why are we listening to him?
Right.
He's just freaking out and doing nothing. Like this guy just gets mad and breaks a bunch of stuff, and then just like freaks out more. Like
He
what are we doing?
he doesn't command presence like Vader does,
Well,
which I know
right,
he's
well,
not.
that's- well, that's
You're
the
never
point.
gonna get another Darth Vader,
Right.
but Vader.
Well,
people fear and respect.
You can
Vader,
compare it to
you know?
something else. Look at Tarkin.
Yeah,
Tarkin and even Krennic, like
Right, I was
they
gonna say
command
Krennic, right.
they command respect. You see them and you're like, yeah, that's the dude in
because they're
charge.
brilliant.
Well,
I mean,
right, but
they're
you see
smart.
like you see someone like Kylo, and it's like, yeah, he looks like he might have power, but like he doesn't look like he's the one in charge, you know. And like obviously he just became in charge, but it's like I just feel there should be more to it than that.
Yeah.
And you know, I guess we'll see what happens in 9 with all that, but
He seemed to
Yeah.
easily become in charge too.
right, like besides killing the guards, everybody else is like, well, okay.
Well,
I mean,
I mean, I guess
just kinda choked
he's
out,
literally
but-
just like, I'm gonna control your army, or I'm gonna kill you. Like those are
Yeah.
your two options right now. So I mean, that's sometimes all it takes to
Yeah.
get that power, right place,
I mean,
right
yeah,
time,
I just, you
right
know, it
events.
does seem a little easy.
Well, and the fact that he killed Snoke so easily too, like, I mean,
He literally describes it as it's happening. It was like, you can't feel with the Force with your almighty power, your power to connect people.
you can't feel that thing turning at you, like.
It's like, oh look, another hilt. I'm describing a hilt though, so I won't focus. Like,
I kind of liked it though. I liked how that played out because Snoke was built up so much.
Well, he's
Like,
blinded
who's
by his
Snoke?
arrogance.
Like, who is this guy? You know, and he's literally just a Palpatine wannabe at the end of the day. And I think that's kind of like he had Palpatine's worst feature, which was his overconfidence. But in his mind, I think he was thinking, I'm going to be like Palpatine. I'm going to have my own Vader. I got this Skywalker
Well,
blood, you know?
I wonder if he got built up so much
Because
of
the
how
fans-
he looked.
Oh,
Well,
and how
that,
he
but I
looked.
think because of how he looked too, because like you're like, how did he get like that?
Mm-hmm.
Why is he like that?
one on top of that,
And then it's
he
just
has
like,
that air
well,
of
who cares?
mystery.
Like, right?
I think it was a stupid character with a stupid name, and I'm glad he's dead.
Well, and that, you know, you can make that argument.
I
But the
know,
other thing
I
is
know.
like, this dude's supposed to be super powerful with the Force.
Mm-hmm.
He literally can bounce lightning at a whim.
that was a cool scene.
Yeah. And like
That was
also
ridiculous.
his command of just the Force in general, like he's bridging
Well,
people's
the fact,
minds.
right, the
Yeah,
fact that
He's
he
like
can
whipping
bridge their
around literally
minds.
lightsabers like it's a joke, and I hated that, by the way. Like
Oh,
when he,
the
like, hits her
comedic,
in the head with
the
it.
boing
Yeah, I'm
in her
like,
head.
all right.
Yeah.
But like he's like lifting her up, throwing her around, and doing whatever, and like. So you're telling me this dude who has this much power with the Force can't feel this going like, oh, there it is. So
Once again, though, I think that goes back to like
he's
his
blinded by
overconfidence.
arrogance. Well, right,
that's
and, like,
his
you know.
weakness, and Kylo exploited that. He
I also-
underestimated Kylo.
yeah.
He died.
Well, and that's, you know, that's fine and all. I have a feeling that there's a chance we might get a return of him somehow. I'm not going to say in an embodiment, but like either through the Force or through something, I have a feeling we're going to get. This isn't the end of Snoke. Only because, like, especially with JJ taking the helm again, I could see him being like, I wrote this character, and you guys killed him. I was not ready for him to die. Like,
Did
you
JJ
know?
write Force Awakens, or did he just direct?
I'm pretty sure he was like heavily involved at least. I don't know. Sorry guys, I don't have that fact, but I do think he at least wrote a lot of it. I don't think he was like the
I
sole
wouldn't be
writer.
surprised. I also wouldn't be surprised if he like had Simon Pegg help him, because I know Simon's a really big.
I'm sure he did like a
Star Wars
treatment.
fan. Right. But
You know, that being said, talking about the Force, Leia, Superman flying is nonsense.
We
now,
all lost our
I don't have a
minds.
problem with Leia using the Force. I don't have a problem with her being honestly that powerful with the Force. My problem is, A, you didn't really set up, like, besides, like, her mental Force powers, they didn't really set up that she can do anything physically, or, like, that she could, you know, create somehow a force field and fly through space. Like, good God, you should be dead. That should not work.
my theory, to make it make sense in my mind, because she flies like Superman and it's just weird. I think
She's a
her
Kryptonian.
force, no,
Genius.
her power manifested in like because her body
Yeah.
was dying. Because
Well, that's
obviously,
fine.
I don't know the lore, but in my head it makes sense.
No,
Well,
I get what you're trying to say. It
that's
was like almost
fine.
like a defense
Right,
mechanism.
it was
Yeah.
like
through the
a defense
Force.
mechanism
That's an
in her
interesting
body, and in the flying aspect of it, like
Well, and I would have liked
right,
if,
and
like,
especially in that position. Like, why did you have to have
Well,
her
I mean,
hand
she
up?
was probably grabbing something with the Force and like pulling herself
well,
towards
see,
it.
I would have liked if, you know, you still have her fly into space, but, like, right before it happens, she senses it and does, like, a force shield around herself, flies out into space, and then maybe, like, activates an airlock on the ship and, like, gets sucked in, and then she
Right, because
passes out.
isn't there a moment where her and Kylo almost seem to be like,
Yeah, they're kind of sensing each
connecting,
other.
right.
Well, and he doesn't even,
right,
he doesn't shoot her.
do it, but you would think, be like, okay, something's gonna go down.
Right. Well,
But-
and I mean, even if you had her doing something earlier in it, like literally just grabbing something with the Force or lifting it around, it would at least be like, okay, so she's trained now. She
Right.
has something. Or, you know, instead of like flying through space, maybe, because she goes into a coma, maybe it's a Force coma.
Right.
And an interesting point, when Luke enters back in the Force for the first time, maybe it wakes her back up because
Right,
she's like,
yeah.
there's hope again, you know, and that could be an interesting tale of like, this movie's all about destroying hope, and her character single-handedly is like, no, hope always comes back. So, you know, there's all that, and we could go on and on, but I really hated how that looked too. Not even like that it happened, but it really didn't look that good.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is nonsense.
Once again, it was something that I really didn't mind as much, mostly because at the end of Return of the Jedi, it's hinted heavily that Leia's already starting to get like force powers, or she's like sensing her force powers, and like we don't see what happens between then and now.
Well, right.
So like you don't know what's happened off screen. So like the fact that she can do that,
right? Like it could just
Like-
be a
Well,
dormant
and like I
thing
said,
for her.
I don't have a problem that she has that kind of force power. It's more or less just like that specific thing. Like she literally stopped herself from freezing in the vacuum of space, and then Superman flew into a ship. That is where I'm like, okay, wait a minute. But then also, if she was untrained, and it's like your theory, where it's just like, you know, it manifested in her because like her body triggered a reaction, and it was like, we need the force, it's calling upon her, and then she does that, fine. But if it's like she's trained, it raises the question of how come she hasn't utilized the force throughout the last two movies at all?
Right.
Like this. And I know like force users don't abuse the force like that, but yeah. So I guess I don't know. I'm sure we could go on forever and ever. But overall, would you guys recommend this movie to someone else?
I would.
I would say yeah. I mean, go see
Especially
it.
if
It's
you're
part
a
of the
Star Wars
saga.
fan,
If you're a
right.
Star Wars fan, you're gonna see it anyways.
It's still a pretty
It's
good
a good
time. It
movie.
has a lot of problems, and it has a lot of good things, but
It's
check it
very
out.
divisive. It's divisive for a reason. I think it leans more towards the good than the bad.
Yeah, and
personally.
I don't mind that. I like the idea that everybody gets their own take, and you can kind of each take your own thing from it, because that's kind of always been like Star Wars. And you can look at the prequels, everybody takes their own thing. You look at the OT, everyone takes their own thing. So yeah, thank you guys for joining us. This has been another episode of The Real Big Deal. Stay tuned.
May the force be with you.